Ghost with Cats, Chapter 11. Shop Cats. Most of the shops had cats who were more than happy to meet Annie. Many of them stared at Tall like they knew what he was. As they walked toward another store across the busy street, Annie said, "Vaughan said participation is mandatory?" Currently, mandatory participation in the lottery is required for all ranked males every 7 rotational cycles, hoping for viable pairings and children. But most males are maimed or killed by their prospective female mates, almost for sport. Females choose who they want 3 times a year until they are pregnant, but it is more like the females want to kill them as much as mate them. The lower-tiered houses have been decimated as powerful females simply choose a male from the lottery to force into submission, mate, and kill for their blood and property. He paused as she paid for her purchases. Annie was glad in the busy shops no one was eavesdropping. Why do they call it the lottery if they choose? Annie was perplexed. Because it is a lottery for the males. Survival depends on whom the male is chosen by. We are the ones subject to the whim of fate and the females. The higher the rank of the female, the more likely her choice is allowed, and the more she gets the chance to murder. It is becoming a sign of prestige to kill males, even though males are forbidden from harming a female or doing more than defend themselves. The animosity between the genders has grown so great, males began refusing to mate at all. It was decided all males are to be given a drug to force compliance with the Edict of Reproduction and Birthing. As they left the packages in the SUV, she asked, "Do they really drug y'all?" "Yes." Tall inclined his head once. "They drug us and try to breed us like animals. I have trained since I was 14 to resist the drug. I have survived 3 times. At age 16, at age 23, and last year, after I turned 30. It took almost a month to recover from the wounds I received, and I count myself lucky to have survived. But I was punished for harming the female who tried to kill me. My tier and my rank are one of the reasons the Queen Mother pardoned me for fighting back." "What was the other?" "It is well known that female wishes for me to ink her before she kills me." They were quiet in the almost empty book and tobacco shop. Some of the shop cats insisted on showing him affection, so he tolerantly petted them while he waited for her to conduct her business. He never imagined their fur would be so soft. He waited by the door while she spoke to the female behind the counter. Looking down, he watched several kittens playing on his feet. "I hadn't thought of getting you a pair of boots with removable fur trim for Christmas." Annie laughed at him. The shopkeeper grinned as she handed over an ornate tin container in a bag. Tall responded in a very dry tone, "I am happy to have entertained you, my lady." "You two are a perfect pair. Happy holidays," the shopkeeper said as he stood perfectly still while the shopkeeper removed several kittens from around his boots. "Maybe. Merry Christmas," Annie giggled, but Tall did not understand what they were a pair of. Lastly, they went into an antique shop. A large black and white cat with one green eye and one blue eye sat on the floor. Tall stood next to it, waiting. Annie was looking at an antique car, toy, a model Bentley, and asking the clerk about it. The cat pawed at him, and he looked at it. It blinked once, then turned its head toward the items hanging on display. Tall looked up. Then he spotted a sword on the wall. It was very old and looked very well made. Annie saw him eyeing it and asked, "Excuse me, can we see that sword? Is it a replica?" "Yes, ma'am." The clerk took the sword down and handed it to Tall, then said, "No, it's not a replica. It's a samurai sword made in occupied Japan after World War II." Tall held it carefully as he examined it. He had read about their Second World War. It was a fine sword, well balanced and well maintained for its age. He felt no flaws in the folded metal. Tall flipped it around him expertly. The store clerk looked nervous at first, but then was amazed at his skill. Annie stood perfectly still as the blade flew around her. It touched nothing. Tall started to hand it back, but when Annie put her hand over his, "If you want it, you can have it," she said softly. "I could not ask it of you," he responded. She rolled her eyes, then grinned, teasing. "It's Christmas, and I still don't have a gift for you, unless you want furry boots." They both smiled as he shook his head. "I do not believe those would suit me." Handing a piece of plastic to the clerk, Annie grinned. "Then it's settled." The clerk looked at it, then back at her. "Hey, you're the writer from up the mountain. I remember you. I took one of your classes 5 summers ago," he said. "Yep, that's me," she grinned and squinted at him, remembering. "That was the first year I taught. You wanted to write science fiction like Kuntz or Roddenberry. Carl, right?" "Yeah. Who are you writing for this month?" Carl asked excitedly. "I can't tell you. Trade secret." Annie winked at her former student. "Can I guess?" Carl asked, placing the sword in an ornate case that contained a sheath laying in red silk, as she signed the slip. The car was nestled safely in a shipping box filled with packing foam beads as she scribbled on the address label. "Nope, and don't even bother. I have never revealed one of my ghosts, and I never will," she vowed, "and no one will ever be able to figure it out." "You sound pretty sure, Miss Dove." Carl sounded skeptical. She winked at him. "If the New York Times can't figure it out, no one can." The cat jumped onto the counter, and she petted the big feline. It purred loudly as Tall took the box. Tall discovered the strange rumbling sound was a sign of affection from the felines in this world. The felines of his world were untamable, and he had no idea if they ever made sounds more than growling and yowling. "Seriously, that's awesome," he exclaimed. Then Carl whispered, "Who's the big dude?" eyeing Tall up and down. She took the sword case because Tall was already standing by the door holding the box with the antique model car. "Cute, isn't he? He's research for an upcoming client. His family is the last real samurai living," she lied, whispering conspiratorially. "Rule number 2 for ghostwriting. Authenticity comes from doing all your own research." She winked at Carl, hoping he believed her. Samurais were easier to believe than aliens. Wow! Carl's jaw dropped, and his eyes bulged because he thought her deception tipped him off to her next project. Then she handed him a pair of $20 bills. Merry Christmas, Carl. Merry Christmas to you too, Miss Dove. You rock, he said excitedly. Hey, he called out as she reached the door Tall was holding open. Don't forget the mistletoe or it's bad luck, he winked at her. She looked up at the plastic and nylon mass of green with white berries and blushed. Sorry about this, she apologized to Tall and pulled him down by his collar, then put her lips against his for a moment before pulling him out the door. He stepped out after her into the late afternoon snowfall, asking, "What was that?" Having seen people do it on the media entertainment. The sun was below the mountain peaks, but it still seemed early. A kiss under the mistletoe. It's a Christmas tradition. I'm so sorry. I do not think I minded. What is the significance of it? Tall inquired as they walked back to her SUV. The black Land Rover was white with snow, which Annie brushed off quickly. According to Norse mythology, a Norse goddess was warned in a dream that her son, the god of light, would be murdered by an arrow made of solid wood. So she took a vow from all the trees that none would harm her son. But she overlooked the mistletoe, which was a tiny, scrawny bush. Her son's enemy, the god of evil, found out and made a tip of an ashwood arrow out of mistletoe wood and tricked the blind god of winter into shooting the arrow at the god of light, who was killed. The mistletoe felt such guilt that it refused to grow on its own roots ever again, sacrificing its ability to live to return the god of light to life. His mother wept over it and kissed it, giving it the white berries, and the other plants pitied it and promised to allow it to live among their branches forevermore. So now, people who care for each other exchange a kiss under the mistletoe for good luck and long life. She narrated as she drove. It is a lovely story. The touching of lips is called a kiss? He asked. Yeah, don't Jaws people kiss? She was surprised to be asking. No, I have never been kissed before, he stated. She almost drove over a curve, turning into the printing, copying, and shipping store. Seriously? Never? You don't hug or hold hands and don't kiss. How do you display affection? I mean, would you display affection if you found a wife or spouse or mate of some kind that didn't try to kill you? She asked, exasperated, as she thought sarcastically, and I thought my people were messed up. We embrace between fathers or uncles or siblings or cousins occasionally. Sometimes my brothers or cousins would lick or bite one another when we were younger, but we grow out of it. Sometimes males and females who have affection for each other will do the same, but it is rare. Mostly now, it is a battle just to survive mating. There is joining, as in what you would call a marriage, which is rare. Then there is a true inking, but that is rarer still, he explained, but stopped at her shocked expression as she turned the motor off. Inking? As in tattoos? She asked. He nodded, and his translator explained the term to him. Glands behind the male's teeth allow him to put his mark upon the female his inner predator chooses as a mate. The ink creates a pattern around the bite, he explained. So basically, for a date, compatible couples tattoo each other, if they don't kill each other, every 7 years trying to have a child, she clarified. When he nodded again, she rolled her eyes. No wonder your brother was looking for another way. I'm sorry I asked. No offense, but it all seems really terrible. Do you think you will ever have a child? I am of high rank, and desired only for my status and the status my child would offer. But all of the females I have met only smell of bitterness, and I have no desire to be joined with them, any of them, ever. I would rather remain alone. I run my fleets and take care of those under my charge. I defend the kingdom, and I believe this will be the last generation of my father's name. Why the last? Quietly, Tall revealed in stoic detail how his mother was allowed to kill his father, Tariff, because he never fathered a daughter, leaving Tall and his 2 younger siblings, Tol and Tome, to be raised by their 3 elder siblings, True, Tavi, and Tranif. Also, only his brother Tranif was a father. I still must face the lottery thrice more and survive. I pray those under my command who are eligible, such as Vorn, survive, and that my brothers will survive. Many houses have not, he finished regretfully. Like the one from the last lottery, there are those females who wish to make participation by high-ranked males happen more often, if only for the status our children or death would bring them. How many are under your command or at risk? She inquired. Nearly 32% are of high enough tier to be eligible for the lottery, he answered, staring out the window. The rest are like Brees. She parked. Can you wait here while I mail these? I'll be right back. Leaving him in the Land Rover, she went inside. Waiting in line, she felt bad for him. She knew from questioning Vorn that cloning was out of the question. Any child would come out, altered, like Brees. The Eloh females had become black widows and were enjoying it. Vorn revealed to her many males suspected the females of terminating their pregnancies so they could continue killing for pleasure. The only thing that would save a male mate who survived the initial joining was the conception of a female child. A daughter meant protection from being murdered for the rest of one's life, and the male's choice of whom to mate in the future. The Eloh species was becoming extinct because of the loss of everything that made females feminine and nurturing. It all seemed too horrible, and she couldn't imagine having to live on a world like that. Annie thought about her own life and how the men of this world were losing what made them protective and loving as fathers and spouses. She realized maybe their worlds weren't so different.